Hey guys, welcome back. I know it's been a while. I do this a lot. I just kind of I don't have a schedule set for these videos, but I'm back. And so today's topic is something that I gave a message on. Let's see, November 9th of 2019. So like 2.5 years ago, give or take. And that message was what the Bible actually says about women preachers. This one is going to kind of elaborate on that. And this is the why. Why God says women should not be preachers. The why. And I know sometimes I take on these real sensitive topics, and I try to go about it sensitively, but I do this so that people will understand why, like, you know, because right now I'm seeing a lot again of, female preachers and people speaking out about it and people coming to defend women preachers, and I'm just here to lay it out as to why God says that. This is what the Word of God says about it. So, with that being said, this is nothing against women, because women do have a very special place in the church. And they have a very special place in the church that men cannot fill. So let that be said right now. All right, so let's move forward. So if you go with me to Genesis chapter 3, I've already got all these things marked out, so I'll probably get to them faster than you. I'll try to give you guys a chance to go there if you want to follow along in the Bible. I'm reading from KJV. You can read whatever translation that you wish. I'm not a KJV only guy. That's what I'm reading right now. So, chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. It says, "Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." So, first and foremost, Satan is the great deceiver. He is the greatest deceiver that ever was. But when Eve ate of the fruit, she talked Adam into eating it with her. If you go on to verse 6, "And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat it." Or he did eat. So, from the beginning, she committed the sin and brought him with her, basically. And so if you go on to Genesis 16, flip there now. So Genesis 16, verses 2 through 6. It says, And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. So here we again, there is a woman. Now, I'm going to back up on this one a little bit, because earlier, God has promised Abram that Sarai will bear him a child, and that he will fill the earth exceedingly and abundantly. He said, as many as the grains of sand are numbered will be your seed, your inheritance. Now, Sarai was barren. She couldn't give birth. And so now they're old, like 99, and beyond her birthing years. She's like, so if God promised us this, then maybe there's another way to it. But that's not what God said. God said, Sarai shall bear you a child. And she went against that word and said, go unto Hagar and have her give you a child. And so he did that, and then she gets jealous and despises Hagar for doing what she said to do. Now, I know, bear with me, it's getting kind of hectic, but bear with me, because there is a happy ending, all right? And give me just a minute, I gotta turn down my heater. All right, so, all right. So that was Genesis 16. Let's go to Genesis chapter 19. All right. Oh, it's not chapter 19. Chapter 19, verses 30 through 36. I hope that I have this. Nope, that's not the right one. Why did I say 19? Oh, that's Judges. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't have this one marked. So Genesis 19, 30 through 36. Okay, 30. Yes, Lot. All right, so verse 30. Come, let us drink, or that's 32. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. Now this is after Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed, and his wife, God told them not to look back, and his wife looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. And so now he and his daughters are living out in the wilderness, and they're living in a cave. Okay. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. So she's saying, we're all that's it, and there's no way that we're going to be able to reproduce. Okay. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve the seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bore a son, and called his name Moab. And the same is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger she also bore a son, and called his name Ben-Ammi. The same is the father of the children of Ammon to this day. So Sarai Lot's daughters got him drunk and slept with him. And again, this is from the Bible, and it's leading up to the why. All right, so this is where the why comes in. So if you go back to Genesis chapter 3, verses 15 and 16, I'm just going to go with verse 16. It says, Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception, and in sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. And thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Now go to chapter 4. It's on the same page. Chapter 4, verse 7. I'm going to link these two together. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. Now God is talking to Cain, saying that sin will, and unto thee shall be his desire. So sin will desire to rule over you. And in 3:16, the woman's desire will be to rule over man. And to back that up, all right, the Hebrew word there is teshuka. Teshuka. In the original sense of stretching out after a longing, a desire. Now, it also links these two verses together. A feminine noun, meaning longing, it was used to describe the strong feelings of desire that one person had for another, but it was not always a healthy desire. As part of the judgment after Adam and Eve's sin, God said that a woman would long for her husband. People are not the only thing that can long. God told Cain that sin was lying at the door, desiring to enter. And so that part where it says, he shall rule over thee, and thou shalt rule over him, what that is saying, it's not saying that we will like rule over it and have, all say, it's my way or the highway. That's not what it's saying. What it is saying is that in the two, sin is going to desire to overcome us. And what we need to do is to rule over the sin and not succumb to it. Now, in verse 16, 3:16, it's that word desire. It's the same word in both verses, but different applications. So in verse 16, it says, and he shall rule over thee. It's not saying that we have all power and all say over our wives. What it is saying is that we as men will rule over that desire for the woman to take over control of the man's roles. And we see that happening right now. it's not feminism, because feminism, when it first came out, was a good thing, because women wanted their equality, equal rights, which I'm for. But what we're seeing now is that women are wanting to basically just overtake the role of the man in the household. And so this is where I was nervous about doing this message, because in the world that we live in today, what I'm talking about is very taboo. But this is God's map for the family. And to prove that, and this is the happy ending part, okay? Just to show you that I'm not being like a male chauvinist or anything like that. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 5, verses 21 through 33. All right? And this right here is God's plan, God's map for the family unit. And it's being eradicated. And I think this is very important. All right? So, Ephesians chapter 5, verses 21 through 33. It's 21 to the end of the chapter. All right? So, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. Wives, submit yourself unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. Verse 23. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let wives be to their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wife, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So Christ gave himself so that we would be holy and without blemish. And we as men, as husbands, need to do that same thing for our wives. Verse 28. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth it and cherisheth it, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. This is the great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. Okay. So, this is why I wanted to end it with this passage, because a lot of people will, read just those verses that I went through, and it's like, oh, well, the Bible is just, anti-women, and no, it's not. It's really not. Those are just a few passages from the Bible, and they are there to correct us and keep us in line, all of us. All right, but this part right here, when people try to say that the Bible is chauvinistic or one-sided or whatever, I like to go to this passage right here, because Christ gave his life for us to make us righteous. He gave his life to bring us to him. And so this part right here is saying, it's telling husbands their duty to their wives. we have a duty to our wives to cover them, to protect them, to lead them. All right. And my wife, like a couple years ago, said something to me, and it threw me off. It blew me away, because this wasn't anything that I told her or I asked her or anything. It just came out of the blue. We had just moved to a new town, to Payson, and we were looking for churches, and there's a lot of churches in Payson, and we were church hopping and church hopping and church hopping, and she was getting tired of it. But she told me one day, she's like, you know what? She's like, you're my husband, and I will let you lead me in spiritual things. And I was like, okay. And what that did for me was it gave me the responsibility to step up and lead her in spiritual things. And you know, it's a struggle for me sometimes, because that is the responsibility of a husband. And the wife has certain responsibilities in a marriage. Children have certain responsibilities in a family. And in a church setting, women have responsibilities and men have responsibilities, and they are not the same responsibilities, but they are designated to each of them for specific reasons, and it's also outlined in the Bible. And a man isn't fit to perform a woman's role in the church or in the family unit. A man just isn't fit to do it, just like a woman isn't fit to do a man's role in the church or in the family unit. It's God's design. And a lot of people take offense to that, but I find it comforting to know that my wife understands that, and I didn't have to explain it to her. She just knows that, and I don't know how she knows that. I mean, she's pretty spiritual. And she encourages me, and that's part of a marriage, is she encourages me, she lifts me up, without even knowing it. Like that, saying what she told me that day was, I was like, okay, like I really need to step up as a husband right now. Like that was my cue, you know? So, and I'm grateful to her for that. So anyway, and I just want to end with this. Like, you may have seen it, you may not have, but there's an actual illustration of God's design for the family unit. And what it is, it's this umbrella. And under the umbrella, you have, at the bottom, you have children, and then you have wife, and then you have husband, and you have Jesus, and you have the Father. And what that is that the children submit to the wives, or the mothers, the wives. The wives submit to the husbands, and the husband submits to Christ, and Christ submits to the Father. And all of that is what protects us from the sin and the temptation and just the corruption of the world. And that is the design. And it's not like that to, and there are people who abuse that. Like, there are men, there are men who are like, no, you're my wife and you have to submit to me and you have to obey me. And that's abuse. It's abuse of authority is what it is. I don't want to say power. It's not abuse of power. It's authority. It's abuse of authority. Just like, you just because you have the authority does not mean that you need to just make them bow down and submit to you no matter what, because doing that is a sin also. So anyway, I really hope that this came across the way that I wanted it to. But this really is a sensitive subject. It's an important subject. It really is. It's an important subject. Just the role of people in the church, in the family unit, in general, biblically, it's very important. So, and in today's society, it's all being just pushed to the side, and children are running rampant. I'm just saying, you know, all of these things stem from the family unit. It starts in the family. And when you start to distort the design for the family unit, then the world gets distorted. So I'm just saying we need to go back to God, God's plan, God's design for the world, for our lives, because God knows best. He knows it better than we do. So anyway, this has been super long, but thank you if you've, stuck with me this long. Thank you. God bless, and I hope to see you soon.